Okay, so thank you everyone for joining this call. It's a great pleasure to have some of the best people that I know in the field joining us this call, and we can approach the talent management and performance management from different perspectives. So before we jump into more serious discussions, I'm going to ask them one by one, introducing themselves. So Kim, do you want to go first?
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Thank you for joining, everyone. I am so pumped for this conversation. I'm Kim. I run Co-Traveler HR. It's a one-woman team. And my whole driving force in life is to make performance, compensation, and leveling strategies simple, elegant, and helpful for the team. So, really excited to dive in to talk more about performance reviews today.
Thank you very much, Kim. Miriam?
Hi, everybody. I'm Miriam. Let's see. Thanks for having me, and thanks for everyone for joining. For the last 25 or so years, I've scaled organizations, kind of serial entrepreneur. The last company was Age of Learning, where we grew that company from like 7 people to over 800 people with a multi-billion-dollar valuation. So I have a lot of experience, not just in HR, but in scaling companies, where the pain points are. And now with AI, running my own business as an advisor, helping companies identify those pain points and help grow those companies.
Fantastic. Stephanie?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining and thank you so much for having me. So, I'm Stephanie Hancock. I'm the director of people and culture at a company called Dealer Image Pros slash PBS Systems. I work remotely, but we're based out of Calgary, Canada. And I've been in HR for well over 15 years in different capacities. And I've been studying performance for, I don't know, well over a decade. And I'm in the middle of performance management right now. So I'm excited to be here and to be part of this conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And then I'm Alireza Bolucci. I'm the CEO and founder at Catch Up AI, where we are building a co-pilot for managers and essentially using data to do performance management. And I had the pleasure to meet this panel during different point of time. And I worked with Miriam at Age of Learning, and the same pleasure working with Stephanie there. And then afterward, a little bit more on in AI and talent management. And Kim, I've been following her and working with her. She's well known in performance management. And yeah, we met in person actually at Transform. So looking forward to start this conversation. So before I jump into start, and this is something actually Bob Gallen, who is on the call, actually started to use, and I started to steal it from him. Let's do a chatterfall. Put in the chat where you're calling from and just one important thing that you like.
Oh, coffee and mahjong. That sounds like a great afternoon.
I don't know. She's calling from Napa, and that's wine country.
You know, we have a wine tasting shop right down the street that does like Tuesday night mahjong night. And look, I don't know how to play, but it looks like a blast.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. Everything's better with wine.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, so fantastic. Kristen from Atlanta, Maria from London. Thank you for joining us. It should be very late tonight. Kelsey from Oakland, very close by. So awesome. So my first question, let's dive into talent management. Kim, so how organizations are changing from subjective performance management toward evidence-based approaches? Have you seen any movement around that area? And I'd love to hear about your experience in that.
yeah, I want to say that, look, it's always been the gold standard for evidence-based performance conversations. I think HR has been chasing that dragon for, I don't know, my whole career, and I'm sure before that. Um, and biases always sneak in. We always see it. Like, there was a great post I read this morning about like, if you like someone, is it because you like them, or do you like them because they're a high performer? Like, it's such a squishy area. But now I'm really seeing organizations take a more data forward, evidence forward approach by introducing and implementing new tools. There's a lot of great tools that offer like organizational network analysis that you can upload 6 months of one-on-one data to it. And our robot friends are great at picking out data and picking out key themes that maybe our biases, our halo horn, our recency effects may adjust. So I really think like as we introduce better tools, we're also introducing better performance conversations and better evaluations.
Okay, yeah, that's a great point. And I've seen that a lot as well, especially during Transform. We've seen a lot of movement from AI using AI in performance management. That said, I want to go to Miriam and like, in as you saw the companies scale, there are
Yeah.
certain things that executives are looking at to like see the performance of the team and like make sure that the productivity and performance is moving forward. What has been the bottleneck? What are the things that executives challenged to see during those times?
I think, especially when you come from a startup environment where, what worked at 20 people does not work at 100, and it definitely broken by 200. So the first and most important thing is clarity from the top and consistent communication. Otherwise, what worked, and you could do the drive-bys, as we used to call it, with 7 people or 20 people, will not work later because now you have bigger teams. They are relying on the now middle managers to tell them what to do and how to execute the strategy. So, in my experience, it's the quality of management eventually becomes the ceiling of the organization scale. So you have your middle managers that maybe sometimes they were the best engineer. Great. That does not mean they're the best communicator. The best engineer does not make the best communicator in some cases. If they are, fantastic. But you have to make sure from the top down, there's consistent communication, clarity of what the strategy is. If there's a shift, why? And then make sure that everybody knows. And then you got to also make sure that the managers also become not just the communicators, but coaches, decision facilitators. Because again, as you scale, if you start bringing people on and you want them to be in charge, you've got to let them decide. Not everything has to have approval or should have approval. You need to let them be managers. So there's a lot of that communication and clarity that has to happen that breaks down if you don't start at the top.
That's very important point that relying on middle management has been like, more and more of an issue as organizations becoming like hierarchies becoming like becoming the middleman and then like getting that alignment between the top leaders and all the way to the individual contributors. And Stephanie, have you seen any struggles in adopting AI? Like, you and I have been working a lot on AI. I know you did a lot of research in different ways on how to use AI in HR. Have you seen what is the most struggle that organizations have to bring AI in this performance management and bring those clarities between layers?
Well, I think from what I've seen is they're not you first of all not knowing how to use the tool, and there are so many different tools out there, but a lot of people rely on ChatGPT or they rely on Claude. But understanding, first of all, like it's a thought partner. It doesn't do the thinking for you. It is a thought partner. So it's really important to know how to use it properly, because that's what's going to help you as you're prompting, as an example, as you're prompting to help with the performance, to get what you want, the data that you want to extract or whatever, you have to put in the right information. So some of the times what I'm finding is that people are struggling with how to use the tool properly, or they're afraid to bring the tool in, or they don't have the right security measures around the tool as they are trying to introduce it, which opens up risk and liability for the company. So those are some of the things that I've seen with AI.
Okay. Yeah, that risk and liability is a lot of question. Like that's I've been seeing that a lot. And one thing that I want to add there is there are signals that are in the workflows that people are using
Yes.
day-to-day base. And that's completely different from the subjective opinion. That doesn't mean that we don't need them, but at the same time, there are data that are available about how people are performing, how they are communicating with each other, like all the performance metrics that management was looking at before, like, and then subjectively evaluate. Now the data about that is available in the workflows, and those are great things to look at. And what AI is really good at is capturing them, gathering them, find out where to find them, and also finding out those patterns to provide it
Yeah.
to leaders. And now managers can come in and give their opinion.
Yep.
One big issue that I've been seeing is like garbage in, garbage out. So if we like give all the opinion-based feed one-on-ones or
Hmm.
performance reviews over the last 1, 2 years and give it to AI and say, generate a new performance management information to me, performance review for this and this quarter, it will generate based on those data. That's our opinion base. So
Exactly.
yeah.
And another thing that I found with that is if people don't have a real purpose with the review, or they don't understand what they want the outcome to be, what are you doing? What are you really, how are you trying to move your business forward? That's the part that seems to be missing a lot. It's just, it becomes like a check mark or a compliance. Like we did it, we're going to give you salary increase or whatever. But that doesn't help to move the business forward.
Mhm.
That when we act in that way, it doesn't move the business forward. And then you're going to get people who are stagnant in their performance, managers who aren't managing really because they're just doing perfunctory measures just to, check a box.
Yep, exactly. And
It's because
so
HR told me I have to do it. So,
Yeah, exactly.
And then we ask so much of these performance reviews that we're just checking the box. We're using them for compensation decisions, for
Right.
promotion decisions, for all of these things from one tiny little program that people aren't necessarily, like to your point, just kind of checking the box on. It is such a missed opportunity to
It
move the
is.
business forward.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
and
Yeah.
again, to Stephanie's point, it has to come from the top because it was just like, oh, well, the employees want it because they want a raise. Well, no, there's also career advancements, there's development that
Yes.
could be part of this. And this is why it's important. And I think also that as new managers come on board, they should have their own onboarding as a manager and
Yes.
explain what the differences of being a manager versus an individual contributor. It's not just running your team. These are all the responsibilities that come with it, including the performance reviews and why they're important. And if you can have that at the beginning of the conversation, when the time comes, they can go, oh, yeah, okay, or be thinking along with it. I mean, I would go so far as to say, when your team is doing well, keep an email or a file for each of your employees and keep that stuff in there. So
Yeah.
when the performance reviews comes around, or now in this case AI, you can actually extract real information, not just your opinion. Like, I remember that was okay. No.
Right. And the AI can help you identify patterns and it can help you with what's good, what's been working well, where you can improve. So, but having the right data really supports that.
Mhm. Exactly. So, and I can imagine the pain that like as organizations like were growing, Miriam, you and like your team probably went through to like implement these changes. Like because when a company is about 7 to 20 people, it's just the CEO, CTO will be able to talk with everyone. They know everyone. Probably they don't even need this performance management.
Right.
But for an 800 people company, that's becoming a bottleneck, and implementing those would be really hard. So I want to ask you, what has been the bottleneck when it comes to now I want to implement this, like training managers, or what was the most important bottleneck to get those data all the way to the CEO or the C level or people who are making decisions when it comes to compensations or like other decisions?
So the first thing, honestly, was getting the C-level executives to understand that this is a people investment and not just checking the box. And as much as they didn't want to do it, because we're too busy with our strategy and doing the next five things all at once, I said, this is part of developing your workforce, and we will lose people if we don't do this because career improvement is important, of course. Pay is important, all of that is, and what we're doing, as you know, the purpose is important, but it's not enough if there's no development for the person. So the first thing that I had to do is break that entrepreneurial think that we're having all the time. It's like, no, we're just going to do this. And they'll know if they're doing fine because I'll tell them they're doing great. It's not just that. So that was the first major step that we're going to do this. It's going to be a pattern to this. It's going to be every 6 months. So it was really selling them while getting HR to implement it. And then back then, God, this is before AI, uh, we would have weekly reports that I would have the business partners write about the teams. And it wasn't because I wanted to know what they were doing. I know they were working. We had meetings every day. I was trying to identify those patterns. Where are we breaking on the organization? And it was usually the new middle managers. They're like, I don't want to say this because I'm going to get in trouble. I don't know what to say over here. This person's not doing well, but I don't know what to do. And that's when we started having what I call the playbooks. Like, okay, give me 5 scenarios that you run into, you don't know what to say. And then it was like, because you're going to have to eventually sit down with them and do your performance reviews. So you should be able to know what to say and not to say from an HR standpoint, and how could you say it, but it's also helpful. So those were the three main things. It was getting the C-level to check off on it, say, yes, we're going to do this, and putting a pattern to it. And then getting the middle managers trained and developed enough to be able to do this and understand why. And then getting HR in there to support them and say, this is what you can and cannot do, or what are you having difficulties with? That's the broad strokes. I could talk about that for hours, but that's the broad strokes. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet that's probably has been years of trying to make that happen, and now we're talking in minutes about it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And Kim, coming from that, now the challenges that you've seen managers have, like day to day, in like when they try to do these performance evaluations, what are the challenges that you're seeing that these managers have, to be fair? Because like I know a lot of times they're probably stressed, they don't have the information on hand, and they have so much other things to do. So what are the most important challenges that you see on like for managers to do this?
Yeah, I mean, one, I think it's time. And Miriam was really kind of beating around that giant bush, but like they have a job to do. And I would argue that like growing and coaching and managing performance is part of that job, but it's rarely the most pressing. Rarely do we see a top level company initiative about performance or growth or really anything internally looking. So that's a main challenge that I think we are constantly fighting against. But also, there's a huge, I don't want to say lack of understanding, but our managers don't necessarily obsess over career ladder expectations like we do. They don't necessarily obsess over what great in a role looks like. They just know, are the rocks that I need pushed forward being pushed forward? So it's really on us to help make that easy to understand, to help clarify that, and really to continuously nudge them in the right direction of, hey, like, how are these chats going with your team? How can I make time for you to have these chats with your team? What do we need to take off the calendar? How can we create that space? And part of that space is dedicating thinking time to exactly what Miriam was saying. Like, how do you frame harder conversations? How do you address harder questions? And it's a learning experience, right? Like, no one's great at performance management when they first start managing. So making sure that they have the tools and support to become confident as they engage in these conversations.
Hmm. Yeah, that training is like a lot of time getting missed. Like, you're a great individual contributor, and we identified you as someone who is doing their job. Like, as a technical employee, you're doing great. And now all of a sudden, we want you to be a manager because we need to promote you so that you stay with the company, and we never train you to do that. So, great. So, Stephanie, what has been like, the part of management? How can we stay human at the same time as start using AI? Because that has been some challenges that we've seen. That human connection is a big part of being a manager, but at the same time, AI helps managers a lot. So what's that limit? Do you have any opinion on that?
Oh, yes. We have to be really mindful in being the human. We have to stay in the moments that matter. So, as an example, in one of my jobs, like I had someone whose child had cancer. You don't want to just plop that information into AI, right? You want to be human. There is a lot happening in the world, tons of stressors. We want to stay in the moment, stay connected with people, even in a remote environment. You can reach out and ch just chat. That's what I started doing with my team. I just started doing these random check-ins and chats, just like not scripted, not there is no outcome to achieve except for me to connect with people. So we have to make sure that we are staying connected with people and bringing the people element in. AI helps us to build and develop our strategy, and it helps us with our thinking and helps us to execute better, but it doesn't help us to be that replace people. Like we don't want to replace that human element because that's always going to be necessary. There are people who are going to need leaves for, various reasons. We want to stay connected with that. We want to have our hands in that and not give that to a tool.
Yeah, that's a great point. That keeping that human touch is important. That reminds me at the time that one of the significant like airline companies started to move away all the customer service and replace them with AI. And all of a sudden there was a near crash experience that happened. And then all people were calling and they didn't want to talk to a robot, an AI, where they are anxious about their loved ones. So they pulled it back. They started hiring a lot of more people, and the same thing happens. That's more like on the extensive side of it, more like exaggerated situation that doesn't always happen with HR, but it does happen these type of things. So when I was starting this company, I was thinking we have managers. It's a spectrum. We have managers who are on top of things, who know how to talk with their teams, how when someone brings something to them, they are experienced enough to respond correctly, deliver those feedback correctly. But at the same time, and that's not just a few number of managers, that's a long list of managers when I was training managers was either they don't know how to gather this data, they didn't give the safe environment for their team to provide those information. And then even if they didn't know how to deliver those feedback and act on those. So the AI that we bring to this management and we say a co-pilot for managers, something that helps this manager and enable them, should be able to give enough space for that manager who wants to be more involved and they're trained. And if a manager cannot do that, remove the bias, help them do that, handhold them.
Mhm.
So kind of having that flexibility is a key. So being able to create a closed loop that people can act within it and include their judgment as much as possible, but it constantly removes the bias because we know human being might have biases.
We all do.
Yeah.
That it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It's just our initial experience. It's what you do with it afterwards, right? If you continue to use it as a bias in a negative way, but we all have biases.
Exactly. So removing that bias or at least reducing that AI, I believe, can help a lot with that. It has its own biases that we need to be
Mhm.
careful and human in the loop is important. But at the same time, they can help each other and enable each other. So I want to go back to Kim and ask one question. So introducing AI in performance management will introduce something about trust and culture because people need to now trust that when this evidence is being gathered, are they going to be used against me? Are they like going to be used for my favor? So, what has been your experience, and what do you think? How do your organizations usually create that trust?
Yeah, I mean, morning, HR gonna HR here. Transparency and frameworks. I think when we're really honest, one, I think Stephanie alluded to this earlier. First, creating a policy about how we use AI. So we're being careful about where and to what source we share protected information or sensitive information. So first, get your policy values forward, company protective forward, human forward, and set that. That's help sets the stage. Then be really honest with your team. Hey, here's how we're going to use AI in our performance management process. Here's how this AI model has been trained. Here's the companies that we're partnering with. Give as much information as you can on it so folks understand, like, okay, when I engage with this AI or when my manager engages with this AI, here are the bounds it's playing within. And then give a framework for folks. Hey, here's how to use this as a thought partner for coaching. Here's how to use this to grow your career skill set. We've already uploaded our leveling framework in here. So you just need to tell it, you know, give it some feedback that you've gotten about your growth areas, about what you're great at, and about what you want to do next. And the more resources that we can provide folks to navigate these tools knowledgeably and confidently, that builds trust. Now, I think we also, again, HR gonna HR, ask your team, ask them how it's going, ask the flaws that they see, what iterations that they want to see in the program, and start that conversation with folks, letting them give us feedback and helping us iterate on our program. Again, it's all trust building opportunities.
Mhm. Can you give us an example of like, one team or something that you had implemented, like, and you saw that trust is not being there, but like something implemented that helped that trust?
Yeah, so at one of my clients, we had introduced a performance tool that had an AI coach with it. And then again, to Stephanie's point, as I went on like a tour of listening with folks, a catch up with no outcomes and no agenda, I realized everybody was using ChatGPT and they were using like the public version of ChatGPT and putting in company information and their information and like okay, cool. I love that your one person was like, yeah, I spent like 5 hours doing career planning with ChatGPT. Okay, I love this gumption. I'm so pumped about it. Like, I want to validate what you're doing. Also, I'm terrified. So, we really did a huge push. The executive team was involved. We did a huge push to get everybody into the tool. And that person who went out to ChatGPT, they were our champion for it. Like, first, I went to them and I was like, cool, let's recreate what you just did in this internal tool that's already been validated. Tell me what works for it. Tell me what doesn't work. What would you tell your colleagues about this? And what should they know about this? And then we kind of built training off of that and we created space for folks to play with the tool unstructured. It worked out pretty well. We've got pretty high adoption rates. It ebbs and flows with the needs of the business, but we're getting there. It's also new.
I love that.
Right. Did you come up with prompts as a result of that you were able to share with everybody else, like use these kind of prompts and things like that?
No, but now I'm kicking myself for it.
It's okay. You can go back and do that.
Go back and
Yeah,
do
I
that.
know. Now like maybe some focused prompts, but really it was just like, hey, talk about your goals. Like we started with, what do you want to do next in your career? And
Mhm.
then the tool that we used internally is built into their performance management system. So it was able to see individuals' feedback, their kudos, all of that
Yeah.
stuff and have
Love
a
that.
more personalized conversation.
Yeah, we have a
But
prompts library. Um,
There you go.
So
oh,
Yeah.
our COO created a prompt library for all of us. Just to, sometimes, again, this is where the garbage in, garbage out comes in, and why
Right.
it's so important. If you don't prompt it right, you're not going to get the outcome. But so we have a prompts library just to like reference in case we want to, create a playbook, create an SOP, whatever we want to do, and maybe we don't know the right prompt to use.
Yeah, maybe something like a big part of the library when you roll out your performance review software, like
Yes,
the prompts to use with this system or with, ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, however each one works. This is thought.
it's a good thought.
Yep, that's amazing. Yeah, those prompts. And then one other thing is that so that's where like I was in another call actually, Stephanie was there as well. There was this question of like how ChatGPT is different from vertical HR systems. Where in ChatGPT you need to submit the right prompt. Usually you need to go back and forth. And then still, like it might not have all the data about your company. It might not have all the data about governance that you're putting in place. So where that's different from a general use case AI versus a vertical, very focused AI tool that like Kim was mentioning, is that you can import those information to it, and it was built based on, it has its prompt. It actually build up the prompt based on those information you gave it. Look at your governance, look at all the a report or all the manuals, company manuals that you have. It look at how your company culture have been over time and build up those prompts. And then now everyone in your team gets kind of a standardized review versus if they ask them to go in ChatGPT and put something, everyone come up with something, and then the whole HR team needs to sit down and start rejecting or accepting those and giving feedback. So those are really great, important information. And then I want to go back to you, Miriam. As you were working with these executives, what was the challenges? What was the most important information, that visibility they wanted to have into the engagement and performance that was connected to business outcome? Because when you're a smaller company, the business outcome is very important. I imagine up to your 40, 50 people, you might not even care about the performance of the team because that's very connected to the product outcome you're seeing. So you say, I see the outcome. So the team, of course, they might be performing. If not, I'm going to act something really quick. I don't need to constantly monitor the performance. But as you grow, you want to have a system to look at that performance. But how was that performance result was actually connected to the outcome of the business? Because I know you've been working with all the business owners and
Yeah.
president of the company and executives. So
It was really different stages for different things. Okay. So let's say at 150, after having launched the primary product, it was really working about the second or third products that we wanted to launch. So it really became about deliverables. So how fast were the deliverables coming through? And that really became the performance without getting to the performance reviews. But it was like, is this team delivering on what's needed to be able to launch the product? And also, that's probably right around when we started getting investors in. So it was also about what are we spending the money on? So it was making sure that, of course, it's got to be collaboration, and the friction would come if there were too many silos, and people not talking to each other, especially when um, at the beginning, one, for example, the art team was doing art for everybody versus each team having their own art department. So it became about the deliverables and how to organize that so that the art department could deliver on this team first because that was the priority, because that will get us money first, versus this other team that's going to be more research based. So it was really trying to figure out how do we get to market, or how do we get to alpha or beta launch with the teams that we have without overtaxing everybody, but delivering on the strategy. And I mean, I call it was like going down the freeway and changing a tire at the same time. That's really what it's like at the beginning on scaling the organization. So you have to be very smart with where you're going to put your horsepower behind, which is really what is going to make you money fastest. Because you are getting investors now, you have to report to them that the money is being used wisely, but you also have to make sure that it actually is being used wisely. So it's really looking at what's the strategy and how is that team delivering on that performance. And if they're not, is it a clarity problem? Is it an organizational problem? Or is it a people problem? And that's really how we start scale things around that. So ideally, it's not a people problem because you've hired the people. So it's usually a clarity problem. And again, not talking or being focused on, or not even understanding that, guess what, this is actually a priority this week. Forget that you were doing that last week. This is what it is now, because now we're going to be able to launch this product. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
yeah. And so essentially at the beginning, it's all about the business creating outcome. And that's why
Yeah.
I usually really like to see, and it's a dream to get all the enterprises to act like startups. Of course, there
Yeah.
are much more complexity, but that's the visibility that I'm looking at it. I like immediately find out there is this problem with my team in the performance, and I'm going to fix it because I know how it's going to affect my outcome. The
Right.
larger organizations become, it's not that visible. So I think that's where the performance management comes in. They have a system to connect these two. And sometimes I feel like that's getting missed in the way where we do the performance management for the sake of performance management. Of course, it affects the individual contributors and the team members and employees to give them some highlights of how they are improving their career, how they are doing in the company. But there is another side of it that
Right.
as a business, I want to be successful. So between all of you, do you have any point on how to make that more visible in a larger organization? How we can make sure this performance management is actually directly affecting the business outcomes and how to connect the two?
I mean, I think that's what, sorry, Steph, go ahead.
No, no. Oh, well, I think Miriam actually touched on it earlier, starting with the leadership, like
Yeah,
executive level leadership, they have to understand the importance of it because it's the driver of the outcome. The people are the driver of that outcome that strategy is seeking. So it's getting them to know and understand the importance of it and how valuable it is to their own strategy, business strategy.
I mean, really, as companies grow and they get larger and larger, the communication gets diluted, and that's where the leadership has to come in and emphasize what the strategy is, what the priorities are, why they're there, so that it aligns everybody. So it's like, yeah, we want you to do great, but you have to deliver on the product for the whole company, and each individual, it's like you're building a house. Well, everyone has a brick to lay. Great. But if they don't know that they're building a house and that changed to maybe a three-story house, well, everyone needs to know that because it changes, but it gets as you grow and grow, you assume, and that's the biggest mistake that I've seen, that people just know because they showed up that they know what they're going to do. And then not necessarily, you know? And that's, I think, where improvement can be from the top is the communication and clarity of what everyone should be doing and why. And I mean, if you say it once, say it 5 times because it gets
Right.
lost in translation somehow. It's like, oh, I didn't know you meant that. No, that's what we meant. We're gonna build a three-story house now instead of one-story house. Oh, okay. To put in some,
I think I might have kind of a spicy take here. Rather than trying to get leadership on board that this is important and this is helping we achieve our goals, which I feel like is the struggle that every people leader has had. I genuinely think our performance whole cycle needs to be in service to the priorities of the business. I think we too often,
Mhm.
oh, so people are gonna come for me. I'm glad we're recording this. I don't think performance management is about the individual humans in the business. I think that is a delightful intersection, but our performance management process really should be how are we achieving these goals? We, as the owner of this program, it needs to be abundantly clear that this program that we run is not just helping grow the humans in the business.
100%.
We can
One
directly
hundred
show you how
percent.
it's achieving our goals. And oh, delightful side effect, look at how our team is growing alongside of it.
1000%.
Um,
Move the business forward.
Yeah.
yeah, to move the business forward. Passions boil
That's
close to
it.
the surface on this one. But yeah, it's actually,
Yeah.
it's not about the individuals that are participating in the process. It's about how those individuals are making progress to the goals that we have set. And like, I, I mean, HR works for the company, I guess, but like, we're all in it. We all work for the company.
Yeah. Deliver on the
We're all
strategy.
in it to
Yeah.
move that, to achieve those goals.
Yeah, and it gives people the opportunity to see their impact with the business. It's not just, again, back to checking the box.
Yes,
Let people see and know their impact because that's going to help adjust their performance as well.
100%.
Fantastic points. And I love seeing the passion go to the roof. And that's for me the same as well. Like if it doesn't affect the business, if those are not aligned, it's not sustainable. So if I implement the best tool ever for the employees, but it's not helping the business, or the other way around, building something for management and leadership, and employees don't get anything out of it, they start gaming it, or the other way around. So And I have some statistics around it. Like companies that are not good, having a good reputation as an employer, they have to pay 10% more salaries to their employees to entice the new people to join them. And like companies that are more engagement, like engagement is higher and don't have lower rates in disengagement, they are 23% more profitable. Like these are statistics that are existing. The thing is that how we message that to the leadership and how do we message that to the employees so they are aligned with what we are doing. As Maria mentioned, that communication and how to actually align and make sure people understand what we are doing so everyone is aligned in that. And that messaging can like go a long way. I've seen like a wrong messaging will throw off one side or the other. Make it like, this evidence-based performance management as a monitoring big brothery tool that is we
Right.
just want to monitor you. So
I
any
mean, I
other
would start
points?
with those statistics, Alvarez. I would start with those statistics and show the
Yeah,
C-suite. Here, want to save some money? Here you go. Because money
Exactly.
always talks.
Yeah.
It just does.
it does.
Yeah.
I'll start with
And
those statistics and then you just share that. I'm like, here's the argument right here. Now we'll write it up on a big whiteboard. Letters this big.
exactly. And did you
You
know
know,
like in a 1,000 people company annually about 50 top performers voluntarily move out, just go to another company. That's the turnover. That's costing them about $50 million in 1,000 people company. That's a lot of money. So just going with those information rather than, hey, let's be nice and have performance management, I think will go a long way. So I'm going to wrap up with one other question that, and three of you, any opinion on that? I'd love to hear. So, what leadership skills become more important in evidence-based management? So that's good for middle manager or like higher level managers. What are those skill sets that you think are much more important when we go more toward the evidence-based management?
My gut reaction is empathy. Like absolute first gut reaction. I'm sure there's 100 things that we can think of, but when we are leaning on a large language model or AI or robots to help us identify themes, uncover data, whatever, we need to approach it in such a much more human forward way. So I think really like
Yeah.
empathy, active listening, all of the things we train on in early manager careers, early career managers, we need to double down on that. And I might argue, especially at the senior leadership layer, those who are a little bit more removed from individual contributors. Um, Empathy and kindness will get you a long way.
Yeah. And I was thinking too, along with that, we can't manage people the way we did in office. That's something that has just I have seen this happen so much.
So, yes.
We we're dealing with a whole different generation that's all they've done is remote work. From middle school or elementary school on, we're just in a very different environment. So
Yeah.
the way you manage people, you have to think of the environment that we're in. The office environment has changed drastically. So just keeping up and to your point, Kim, being empathetic, your empathy is going to have to evolve and adjust with your workforce. It's not the same, and it will not. We're not going backwards. It's the world will continue to evolve into different ways. So we just have to continue to adapt our empathy, our kindness, and our clarity.
Right. And Miriam, do you have any points around that?
I mean, I think all three of you actually have touched on this. I think AI will never replace judgment. There's assumptions there, so you have to have judgment.
Yes.
And with experience, you get clarity on that and where you can recognize the patterns and whether there's remote work or in person, however that is, you still need to have judgment. People can not be replaced by a robot. Period. Full stop. So you've
Mhm.
got judgment. You have to have context. Obviously, even more communication, I think, And then to your point, Larissa, you made before, trust. That's how you're going to build trust, and then
That's
of course
huge.
empathy that is always there. But it's just judgment, context, communication, trust, empathy. AI cannot replace that.
No,
Yep.
because we have to constantly give AI more context. The more context that you provide, the better the responses can be.
Right.
But we have to provide the context. So we have to continue to, human in the loop, stay there with the context, getting more context.
Yeah.
Treat your AI like a toddler that knows nothing.
But has all the power to make your life miserable.
I'm saying.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, it reminds me of Stewie in Family Guys.
Yes.
But so yeah, those are great points, and I think everyone has different tolerance for change, and we should just
Oh,
like
yeah.
understand that that's a part of the empathy. And then like I got my like Tesla first day, first move I had was clicking on FSD. And I realized that many of my friends don't want to even use cruise control. So like that's the like difference people have, and we should understand that people operate differently, and a lot of times people are more toward I want to be more involved might be doing a lot better. So we should the AI tool that we are implementing for any companies AI transformations, we should understand that people are coming from different backgrounds, they have different understanding. I know, Stephanie, you do have a lot of background in disc profiles and helping with personalities. People come with those different personalities and
They're
backgrounds. So
complex.
we should look at those and understand how much we want to get them involved. Oh, sorry, I think I
Oh no.
got disconnected a little bit, right? What did
Luckily, he
you?
froze in good position, right?
Great call, Chris. Oh,
That's good.
hey.
Awesome. Okay, sorry about that.
It's
So
okay.
now let's get to the questions from the audience. If anybody has any questions.
I have a comment, maybe question. First, I appreciate that you acknowledge that smaller teams don't really need quite the bigger, process of performance. And I talk about this a lot because it becomes anecdotal. It becomes it is really good that you've acknowledged that. So I appreciate that affirmation, and we all know it. But and well, so I'm grateful for that. It is difficult to get any entrepreneur, though, founder mindset to not think about their own gut and how they're handling things. And this is just something they're checking a box. A part of me, I just feel like that's always going to be the issue. We're kind of like grappling with it. Have you all found any other ways to, change management that has worked, conversations and helping them understand the broader, the bigger tie to their business?
So I think if I can speak to this, Larissa, two things. One, money, the money discussion. And that's as an entrepreneur, that's number one thing you're thinking about, how to keep the business going forward. Do we have money for payroll? All of that is the constant. The other thing that I did that worked for us was what are the regrettables? Who are the people that no matter what, this business cannot do without? Give me the top 10. Just 10. Out of 800, give me the top 10. Who, if this company were to just dissolve, who are the top 10 you would need to keep this company forward? They'll give me the names. Great. This person has been asking for a review because I need to know this. This person has been asking, you can start speaking to what those needs are. And if you want to keep this person and this that important, this is what we need to do. And eventually you will break that. But it's really, again, tied to money, the performance of the business, the deliverables of the business, and then why the people that they identified we cannot do without, why this is important to them. That helped me.
Mhm.
I think I might have another spicy take here, and maybe it's like lukewarm spicy, which is my favorite. And it's okay, it's not a fully formed thought yet. So again, come for me, internet. Um, Organizations are like tiny little societies. They're tiny little communities. And I do actually think that some of those founder feelings are important to listen to, like, especially if it's a tech founder and this product is their literal brainchild and we are all like working to make it real. I think we can take some time to explore those founder feelings and why they feel is what is best. And really, what you start getting into is what does this organization value? Like, cool, now we're talking about values. Now we're talking about things that we can put in writing that we can give as a roadmap for our team to operate. So, part of that change management is like respecting what the founder likes, what the executive team likes, and turning it into something that's repeatable, understandable, and like we said 100 times, benefits the business.
And
Yeah,
I
I think if
wish,
they understand
but
that, that's, I'm sorry, Alvarez. I think if they understand that, like, we're here to partner with them truly, and we have their best interest as a business to help the business to thrive, I think that will help, that helps the conversation.
Mhm. And like I wish Bob Gallen was here as well. He's been doing a lot of transformation, and I've been a part of change management for a long time. One thing that is really important for because like an entrepreneur, a lot of time, unless they're a serial entrepreneur, they went all
Mm.
the way to a large company, they came back. They don't know. They're really good at building and business and all that. They probably haven't been managing a lot of people, and so from someone point of view, from your background, that you've seen it in other companies, you've seen how success look like. It's very easy. And a lot of times you come in, you see a problem, and you've already solved it for another company, and you know how it looks like when it's solved, but people don't know. And you cannot just go to them and say, I know, trust me, it's good. So helping them, you understand why we do this. Why do we do performance management? Why do I need to do a performance evaluation every 6 months? Am I doing it just for the sake of it, or am I doing it because I want to help the employee and also I want to help business to understand how their teams are doing and then who they want to actually focus on to keep within the company? Like what Miriam said is exactly what she translated from I want to do a performance management for 800 people to where like I have 50 people I want to do performance management. Who are your top 10 performers? Just pick them, give them the top bonuses, make sure you keep them with the company. That's your performance management. But unless you understand why you do that, you cannot explain it to the business. And coming to business, explaining why you want to do that, I think that's the most important language that I've seen the best coaches and change management leads are doing, I think are going that way versus, hey, this is the right way. I have this framework. You should do it. Trust me, it's gonna work. Nobody will trust that. Nobody will do it. Everyone tries to stop you from making that change. So,
And something you just said sparked, I like to frame every change as an experiment. Like we're just gonna try this out for 6 months and then we're gonna come in and see how we're feeling about it. But like,
Yeah,
give me 6 months. What a drop in the bucket of your lifetime. We're gonna try it for six and frame it as an experiment and treat it as an experiment. Take learnings, take iterations, and then at whatever date you agreed upon, evaluate the experiment. And there's three options: continue as is, iterate and go forward, end and return.
yeah.
And that normally gives some comfort in the change.
Well, I like to, along with that, I like to do things in groups. Like, well, let's just try it with this group. And
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
see how this is going to work with this group. And then if we see positive results, we'll learn from this, then we can make it a broader change. But let's start with this group.
yeah. Great points, everyone. I think we can stay on the call if everyone can do, and we can continue this discussion. I think we can talk about it for days. But before we end the session, I want to just go around like, Each of you, for about 30 seconds, say your last sentence about this call. And also, I want to give you an opportunity to put your information in. Like these are my information. If you want to reach out to me, there's my LinkedIn, and then you can reach out to me as well. Also, like let's start with Miriam.
So, I mean, it's always great to get perspectives from everybody. And I think that in any, like I said before, I would do this with was only two people joining or 1,000 people because you can always learn. And it's fascinating to me how quickly AI is accelerating business, but also how quickly managers and executives need to catch up. And they cannot use ChatGPT or Claude or whatever like Google. They need to
Right.
understand the prompts and how they can actually help them, And I think that at scale, like the success becomes less about individual talent and more about clarity, alignment, communication, and leadership. And the organizations that are going to succeed is because they're going to adopt AI with that and build systems that keeps their teams aligned as their complexity grows.
Thank you very much. And please put your LinkedIn down there and any other information about what you do. I think this is a fantastic like point. If you want to understand more about how you can work with executives and as the teams grow, the hassles you're seeing, I think Miriam is the right person to reach out. I've worked with her for a long time. And like it was interesting to see how those changes were implemented. Kim, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, look, performance is hard. I think we're moving from a world of we started with performance reviews and then it was performance management, and I really think we're moving towards a world with performance enablement at the front as the shining star. And I think part of that is, you know, gathering great evidence, having great data, turning your reviews into something more than an opinion, and really framing it in a way that moves the business forward, enables great conversations. And the byproduct of that is it creates a happy, healthy, high-performing team. Uh, yeah, I would love to stay and continue the conversation, but I do have to bop at one. Stephanie, what's your final thought, a la Jerry
My
Springer?
my my final thought is just be very intentional about the performance reviews and the whole process and help people to understand what good looks like and why. What are you looking for? What's the outcome that they should be striving for and the business is striving for? But just be very intentional about it and just help people to grow.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And I'm putting my LinkedIn here as well. And then, like, as a part of what I do with teams, I love to do AI coaching. And I have a free session for whoever is in this call. If you're interested to understand, like, how AI can work with you and you've been struggling that, just reach out to me and I'll love to talk with you for about like 30 minutes, 45 minutes to see how we can help with that. That said, we had one question left, but we are running out of time. If you can stay, like, can we go over that? Will you ever consider selling M&A? Because if so, working 3 years before selling is necessary to get your house in order. Chris, are you still on the call? Do you want to?
Yes, so I do help some due diligence with HR, with M&As. I've done that. But now I'm being brought in kind of after a merger has happened and there's chaos because, job descriptions aren't aligned across, so it's just, you understand. And people are not happy, so they lose their top talent. You get it. So taking that and spinning it a little bit and just going, when I'm working with founders and they're all about their gut, and then a lot of them, because they do want to make money, a lot are then wanting to, they're being, wooed by PE or whatever to sell their businesses. So I now, once I'm running into that, I am at times just going, hey, if you've considered selling, a little bit like what Kim was saying, just consider, have you considered selling? And I will just say, just like if you're selling your home, you're going to want to get the bathroom, the kitchen in order, those kinds of things, because you're going to want it to sell quick and for top dollar. And you're going to want your business to sell quick and for top dollar. making sure you're taking care of your top talent, making sure anyone you don't feel is your top talent or was a bad hire, let's address that because chances are, as you guys mentioned, it's just because they haven't, you hired the right person. You just didn't onboard them correctly. You just didn't take care of them. You didn't provide clarity so people are confused. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. So if we get ahead of that, you're going to sell this business for its and then that gets it in their mind. So a lot of times I have found like even just throwing that out there, especially if I start seeing a lot of resistance because they want to lead with their gut, then they just sit back because now money, as you mentioned, money is at risk. And so that becomes
Mhm.
their risk point. So
Yep. Thank you very much, Chris, for sharing that. So I wanted to thank you all. I think Kim had to leave, but Miriam, Stephanie, and Kim, thank you very much for joining this call, and it was a very insightful conversation. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Thank
Much for
you.
having us.
Take care, everybody.
Bye,
Have a
Bye.
good
everybody.
one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.